Hey everyone, welcome to Area 616. Yesterday I finally got around to seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp in theaters, so today I wanted to talk about it. I came out of this movie with a lot more to talk about than I previously thought I would, so this video will be divided into two parts. My spoiler-free review for those who haven't seen it yet and wish to remain unspoiled, and after that is my spoilers discussion where I'll dive into some of the big reveals of the movie and where I think they might be going, and in particular how I think this movie teases the highly anticipated Avengers 4. Here is the timestamp for the spoilers discussion if you'd like to skip ahead to that. But I've got a lot of stuff I want to say, so let's get started with the spoiler-free review. The first Ant-Man movie is, in my opinion, a very average MCU film. It's definitely not bad at all. It's got a lot of heart, some great characters, and fun action. But it also suffers from an extremely generic villain in a story that was very much a product of that time. But I was expecting Ant-Man and the Wasp to be better than the first, and I'm happy to say that I believe I was right. If I had to pick one word to describe Ant-Man and the Wasp, it would be fun. This movie is simply fun. The humor is great, the action is inventive, and very entertaining to watch. The car chase sequence we see bits and pieces of in the trailer is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And like the first movie, it has a lot of heart to it, especially with the relationships between Scott and Cassie, Hank and Hope, and some others I won't spoil. This movie is very, very fast-paced, which adds to the fun, but I do think that if you want more complex character work here, for the most part, it doesn't really have time to deliver on that. Scott Lang, for example, doesn't really have a discernible arc at all. He starts and ends the movie the same person. And I'd say it's pretty much the same for almost all of the characters in the film. That didn't really hurt it, though. With all that said, I'm happy to say the villain of the movie, Ghost, is a notable exception to this. Her motives are very clear and human, which made her a great antagonist, and yet another addition to Marvel's recent line of fantastic foes. Her power set also proved to be really awesome to watch. I can't say too much without spoiling stuff, so I'll hold off for now. We see a good bit more of the quantum realm this time around, and I really love the design of it. What we saw in the first Ant-Man was just the tip of the iceberg. There's a much more psychedelic world even further down that's visually stunning and would feel right at home in a Doctor Strange movie. As for the Wasp herself, she pretty much stole the movie. She's got this confidence to her that makes her a lot of fun to watch, and Evangeline Lilly gives a great performance. Of course, in the comics they're a famous Marvel couple, and we see a bit of that here too, but it's not focused on much at all. This actually worked out for the best, as they end up feeling more like friends than lovers, which somehow makes their relationship feel more believable. Luis has a much bigger role this time, playing a part in many key moments. Dave and Kurt, on the other hand, kind of get the short end of the stick, which was a bit disappointing to see, but it was ultimately hard to imagine what kind of roles they could have had anyway. Really, there was a lot to like about this movie. The effects were great, the score was one of Marvel's better ones, and the acting was good. The only really negative thing I can say is that it falls just short of being a real game changer for Marvel. A lot of critics have been saying that it's mostly pretty mid-tier stuff for Marvel, and I have to say I agree with that. It's better than the first Ant-Man, but it's definitely going in third place this year after movies like Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. But with that said, I am now going to move into the spoiler section. This is a realm in which spoilers live and breathe, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you wish to remain unspoiled, I recommend you leave now. Okay, so this movie ended up having a few good surprises, although some of it I did predict months ago. Remember in my trailer breakdown for Ant-Man and the Wasp, where I predicted Bill Foster would be the villain and that Ghost would be his daughter? I was sort of right on both of these things, but I did get some specifics wrong. Bill is an antagonistic figure for most of the film, but calling him, or even Ghost, a villain feels kind of off, as it's much more complex than that. And Ghost, or Ava, is not Bill's daughter technically. In fact, she's the daughter of Ant-Man villain Egghead. But he does serve as a sort of surrogate father for her here. Ghost's motivations are some of the best Marvel has ever done. Ava isn't doing any of this out of greed or hatred, but simply because she's desperate. She only has weeks to live, so everything she does is out of a desire to survive and live a normal life. At the end, she and Bill are both still alive, with Janet and Hank helping Ghost stay solid. The turn made perfect sense for her character, and I'm excited to see where Ava shows up next. It seems unlikely to me that a character as great as Ghost will just go away. We might see her go on a path of redemption. A lot of fans have been wanting to see her be a part of a Thunderbolts movie, which I really like the sound of. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that is alluded to throughout the movie, little things that have led to some pretty cool fan theories. So first I'm going to talk about how I see the post-credit scene leading into Avengers 4. And then I'm going to get into how I think some seemingly throwaway stuff throughout the film could actually be teasing some incredibly major things for the future of the MCU. So, the post-credit scene. In it, Scott goes on a mission inside the quantum realm to collect some healing particles for Ghost. But while he's inside, Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, and Hope Van Dyne are all reduced to ash by Thanos' snap, leaving Scott trapped in the quantum realm all by himself. It's a pretty dark ending to a very upbeat movie, but it was really exciting, and put Avengers 4's basic plot into better focus. Before he goes in, Hope makes a point to warn Scott not to go into, quote, the time vortex, because they won't be able to save him if he does. Before, there were plenty of theories that the quantum realm might be how the Avengers travel through time in Avengers 4, but this basically confirms it. I imagine Avengers 4 will open with Scott still trapped inside the quantum realm, but he escapes by purposefully going through the time vortex. When he comes out, he's about 5 or 6 years into the future. You may be wondering how I can be so sure about that time jump. A while back, a rumor went out saying that an actress named Emma Furman had been cast as Cassie Lang in Avengers 4. My guess is that this is true, which means she's playing a 15 or 16-year-old Cassie. This makes a ton of sense to me, and saying that Scott comes out years in the future explains that. Now obviously the first thing he'll do is find Cassie, and she'll tell him what she knows, that a bunch of people around the world just disappeared. His logical response would be, where are the Avengers? And this is where I'm guessing, but I'm betting the Avengers have more or less moved on. They don't know where Thanos is. They don't know how to get everyone back, so they've just kind of given up. Scott, however, doesn't have this overbearing hopelessness, so I imagine he'll go out to try and find one of the Avengers and eventually end up in the same room as Tony Stark. Here he'll tell him about the quantum realm and the time vortex, and this will get Stark going again, and he'll reassemble the Avengers. There are two more little details that I got myself and others theorizing. Both come from seemingly throwaway lines from Sonny Birch and Janet Van Dyne. Early on, Sonny talks about a mystery buyer who wants Pym's lab and tech, alluding that canceling a sale to him would end poorly for everyone. Previously, I might think this was Hydra or someone like that, but he actually goes out of his way to say that Hydra is gone, so we know it's not them. So this got me wondering, is it possible that this mystery buyer may be a more notable figure? There have been a lot of rumors that in Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio will be working for a mystery big bad. It may seem like a stretch to connect these two, but what if they're quietly setting up the MCU introduction of Norman Osborn himself? What if, in the MCU, he's more of an international crime boss, buying and selling illegal super tech? Credit for this really goes to Daniel RPK on Twitter. Also, additional rumors lately have said that Marvel Studios has been asking Sony not to use Norman Osborn in any of their Spider-Man spin-off movies, so I don't know, it sounds like we're building towards Osborn here. And finally, this one's a lot more of a stretch, but I feel like we might also be getting a potential X-Men tease here as well, though it's easy to miss. See, while Janet Van Dyne is in the quantum realm, she gains some extra abilities later using them to stabilize Ghost. When she's talking to Hank about this, she specifically describes gaining these powers as an evolution. Alright, everyone take a moment to put on your tinfoil hat. So, what if Janet Van Dyne is the MCU's first official mutant? What if the quantum realm holds the answers to how mutants come to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Now, there are a lot of specific questions this brings up, like, for example, how? My best answer is that maybe somehow the people who were snapped away by Thanos are, at some point, for whatever reason, exposed to the quantum realm, which results in some of them gaining mutant abilities. But if that's true, it does bring mutants with long histories like Wolverine, Magneto, and especially Apocalypse into question. So I don't know, it is very much a crackpot theory that raises more questions than it answers, but it's just a thought that stems from a very specific choice of words on Janet's part. Also, this could result in already existing characters gaining new abilities. Like maybe Falcon will now be able to communicate with birds like he can in the comics. That would bring up the question of how and why the quantum realm generates such a diverse assortment of powers, but look, this is all just fun speculation. I didn't really think this through that much. But with all of that said, I'm going to wrap this video up now, but I'd love to know all of your thoughts and theories in the comments below. How did you guys like Ant-Man and the Wasp? What do you foresee in Ghost's future? Do you think my theories regarding Norman Osborn and the X-Men might have any truth to them? And how do you think Ant-Man and the Wasp has set up Avengers 4? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Ants! Ants! Ant-Man!